Welcome to another bite-sized VO radio show. I'm Andrew Peters, and up in Sydney
is Robbo. How are you?
Good. Now, we were about to do the show about, I reckon half an hour ago, and we had a bit of an issue with monitoring. You couldn't hear me. It was muffled, and the level was really low.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought we'd go through what actually happened, but it's also more about troubleshooting. Like if you're stuck at home and trying to record and there's an issue, you don't want to be mucking around for too long, because I can guarantee that studio that's booked you probably won't book you again.
No, that's right. Well, I mean, the first thing I was doing was sitting here blaming you, going, bloody Andrew.
Exactly.
Actually, I should explain just quickly that having just moved, I'm still sitting in a half-built studio with temporary cables running here, there and everywhere. Well, my setup is for doing this sort of stuff is I run an MBox Pro off my laptop, which is what you're coming in on, and then I run one of the outputs of that to my main Pro Tools unit in the studio. So that's the setup in general. But after sitting here and blaming you, it occurred to me that, hey, maybe it could be me. So my first step was to actually go right back to the source. So I pulled the headphones out. I'm actually monitoring off the Pro Tools box. I pulled the headphones out of there and threw them directly into the laptop, where I discovered that Andrew was actually doing perfectly well and came in sounding crisp, clear and beautiful. That was the first realization. The second one was then, okay, well, what's in the middle of the laptop and the Pro Tools machine, which is the MBox. So threw headphones in there, and again, still clear, brilliant, present, all the rest of it. So we've basically nailed it down now to, I know that when we finish this session, I've got to get in there and unplug the output from the MBox to the Pro Tools and change that over, because I'd say it's a dodgy cable.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. But I guess the trick I would give you, and having worked in live radio, as you and I both have, we both understand that you can't sit around scratching your head in a situation like that where you've got people either listening to you live or waiting for you at the other end. You actually need to work methodically. You need to go back and start from the source and then work your way through each point in the chain and until you find where the problem is occurring, and then fix the problem. So, I guess that was our hope with this episode today, wasn't it? Was to sort of give people who are just sort of setting up home studios and may experience the odd problem with a live session, give you some idea of how to sort it out, and sort it out quickly so you're not pissing off too many people.
Yeah. I mean, the difference with you and I in radio, because I was working on air, so if anything went wrong in the on-air studio, they would chuck you into Studio B and then pull Studio A apart. But when you're in production, in a lot of stations, there was usually a cart room and one production suite.
Yeah, well, I was actually thinking more of live broadcasts too, when you're doing outside broadcasts.
Yeah.
And all that sort of stuff. A link goes down to the studio. You haven't got time to sit your head and scratch your head and go, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's this. You just got to go, okay, here's the announcer's microphone, here's where it goes to, here's where it goes to next, and here's where it goes out. Let's work our way down the chain.
Yeah.
And figure out where it is. So the other difference between announcers and production, though, was the amount that you got paid compared to us.
Yeah, we got paid poorly in comparison, I can assure you.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's true, but anyway.
But where do you start? Say, for instance, if I'm sitting here and I've got a problem, I'm hearing something that's not quite right. Where would I start? Do I start at the microphone or work my way into...
Yeah, I would. So if I would start, I would just work methodically, start at an end. So, I mean, effectively here, your microphone is my laptop. So that's where I started. And then I went, okay, so if in a studio sense, in a home studio sense, yes, start with your microphone, give your microphone lead a wiggle. Is there crackling? Is there something that indicates that maybe that's not plugged in correctly, or that there's some, some solders come loose inside the lead? Do I need to change the lead? If that sounds good, go to the other end of the mic lead, give it a wiggle. Okay, does that sound clean? Is there any crackle there? No? Okay, cool. Well, then we can presume that the lead's fine. And then if you've got the option to listen directly into whatever you're going into, whether it be a mixer or a compressor or something, stick the headphones in there and have a listen. Is there a problem occurring in there? If that's clean, okay, where are we going next? Are we going to a mixer or a box or whatever? And then listen off that. And just work your way from one end to the other, and sooner or later, you're going to find where the problem's happening. And if you can't immediately fix the problem, if it's an internal problem in the box, then just bypass that somehow. You know what I mean? So it's just working methodically and rather than fluffing around and thinking, well, it might be this, just dive in at one end, work your way to the other end.
Yeah. I mean, I had kind of a similar issue here because I use a little mixer. I use that really as a patch bay. And the reason I use a mixer is because I've got like my phone patch going in there. I've got Skype going in there. OI stands going in there. But of course, the other issue I have is that inside that mixer is preamps.
Yeah, right.
So when I'm setting up my levels, do I use the gain knob or do I just use the slider?
Well, it depends. I mean, if they're asking for fistfuls of gain coming down the other end, I would use gain. If they're asking for finer adjustments, I would just be using your slider.
Yeah.
You know, I might crank up your gain, but at the same time, you don't want to crank your gain up at your end so it's distorting in the preamp either.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, of course, I've got external preamps. Well, everything I'm doing is I adjust in the actual preamp itself. Then the preamp gets fed into the mixer. So I don't really want to be giving handfuls of gain out of the mixer because I really don't want to use that preamp as well. Otherwise, I've got two preamps going. So I'm pulling that down and I should say the fader as opposed to the slider.
We knew what you meant.
Probably because I'm hungry. I fancy a slider. But
there you go.
Yeah, get cheese all over your fingers. You know, yeah.
That's it, exactly. And the other thing I would say to you with that too is that you know the preamps that you have that you use, they're gorgeous. And you don't want to colour them with cheap, crappy little preamps that are in your mixer that you're just using to distribute stuff either.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there's another trick. You know, if you are using a mixer and you're getting distortion and you can't figure out where it's coming from, first thing to do is grab the gain coming into your mic pre and just pull it back.
Yeah.
You know, it could well be that it's distorting there before it even gets anywhere else.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the case. And it can vary from day to day too because, you know, the job that you're working on, you know, maybe you may be using a lower, softer voice today. So, you know, you need your gain up a bit. But then tomorrow you sort of jump in the room and you're doing a hard sell, you know, 30-second radio voiceover and you forget what you've done yesterday and they're going, we're getting distortion.
Yeah.
And that's all it is, just a matter of walking into to the mixer and just winding the gain back a little. So
Yeah,
it's just that fine line.
Cool. Well, I reckon next week we should talk about the difference between gain and level output.
Ooh, now you're getting technical.
Maybe you can explain next week.
Yes, I'll put my thinking cap on to dumb it down.
No, don't dumb it down. Sound intelligent.
Well, I've got to speak to voiceover artists, so I've got to dumb it down a little bit.
Yeah, good on you.
See you next week.
On that note, I'm out of here.
The VO Radio Show is produced in the studios of Voodoo Sound. To polish your next audio production, check us out at voodoo-sound.com. Find professional voices simply all in one place. Realtimecasting.com, including me.